Good morning, Joe Griffo.
Good morning. And you got that sale even before Andrew started working there.
Yeah. That's it.
Imagine
Yeah,
now,
because he'd have
right?
been whining. He'd have been whining. How come you're not going to list with
What
me?
about me?
Yeah.
My timing was always off.
So, what I talked to this expert that we got through Fox News, this Michael Law, who's a political analyst, about the school shooting in Texas. And every time there's another school shooting, don't you feel that, because in government, we have people that are way in on Second Amendment. You're not going to turn them at all. You have people that are big on gun control, don't understand guns, they feel guns are the problem. Then there's that crowd in the middle that, depending on which way their constituents turn, and every time there's another shooting, don't you feel it erodes the support for the Second Amendment, even if ever so slightly? It truly does. You see people that would never talk about gun control talking about gun control.
Look, these are abhorrent acts, and they're unconscionable in every community. When you see the loss of life of these young students and faculty members, it's just so unacceptable. And to a point that you made, obviously all of that becomes a part of the conversation. But more importantly, right now, we need to take some action. I applaud the local officials here that are taking steps. In the budget process this year, the Senate proposed a number of initiatives that I think we need to put in first, regardless of the debate about the causes to this, whether or not it's mental illness.
That all takes time.
Right, mental health, guns, the culture of violence that exists in our society. You talk about desensitizing kids when you think of how they're being brought up, and also the family, the culture of a family. What is the responsibility of a parent? All of that is essential in this conversation.
It's not going to stop a shooting on Tuesday.
Exactly. So what we need to do now is recognize that this is a problem, and it reflects contemporary society in some obscene way that these kids have now taken to this type of it's not only copycat anymore, it's really just something that's been inbred, where somebody becomes isolated and upset, and this is a reaction. I can act out this way and find a way. So the key is we need to harden the schools, Bill. We need to start immediately, and I think we can do that now, not waiting. The debates ought to stop.
We had Steve Hauken earlier today. He talked about building a panic room in schools, how it could be done. A, B, what about bulletproof glass and fortifying that school door in every classroom?
I think we need a template. We need a basic template. I do believe in local control, but we need a basic template to say A, B, C, and D will be done. For instance, every school will have an armed guard in the school. It may be different than a resource officer, maybe some kind of combined, but that individual has to have the ability to be able to interact in the event of some type of
new policy, one point of entry, period. You can only get in one way.
Yeah, so I would look at fortification of the school. I would look at alarms that can be triggered in the school. I would look at how you can video what's taking place in the school. There's a school in Indiana that I think was a great model to begin with, where they actually have doors that automatically jam. You cannot get in. There's bulletproof glass. There's a security officer in the school.
How about metal detectors?
There's I think you're going to have to do that, unfortunately. It's a sign and reflection of today's society. We do that in airports now, in government buildings. We shouldn't be protecting these kids and the faculty that are there. And then beyond that, and it's going to take money, but I think it's something that we need to invest money in. And then beyond that, they had videotaping where it's immediately tied into law enforcement. They can see what's happening.
Yeah, there's technology we aren't even touching.
Exactly. And in Indiana, they actually had something where you could bring smoke to disorient the villain
going through the hallways.
That's what I would call these kids are not only mentally unstable, but some of them are diabolical. What this kid did, if this is accurate, and taunting kids as he's shooting them,
another one bites the dust.
I mean, so the other thing is capital punishment a deterrent? I'm not sure it's a deterrent in these cases, but it is the ultimate consequence. So I do agree that this has to be looked at, and we even need to go after people who are making threats now. So forget about the actual this horror that is taking place, but now you even have individuals that are calling and disrupting.
Here in our own community.
Absolutely, and there's got to be a consequence to that too.
I'm not for this philosophy that it's the movies, the music, the video games. However, where I think we're going wrong, and what I would agree with, is a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old believes that when their tooth is removed, a little winged fairy flies into their bedroom and brings them quarters. Okay, they completely believe this. That's because their minds have not developed to the point where they can differentiate between reality and fantasy. When a child that age is playing with video games that are inappropriate, age inappropriate, you are developing a mind that I believe is being desensitized. So I don't say you blame it all on video games, but the parenting that is allowing this age inappropriate material to be viewed and played with, I think that's a real problem. We got to address some of these things.
I think you're absolutely right. I do think you're making a point. The only trouble I see with that is, excuse me, you can't like, how do you handle a bad parent? You know what I mean?
I don't know that you can. It's not like we can legislate this, but you have to through education, I think. The only way to do it is through education. Back to, this is going to take a long time to fix this. Hopefully the summer comes and these kids forget about going in and shooting up schools. Because it's a copycat thing going on right now.
Well, it's not even a copycat. It's in this. You're right, but in a way, it's also, well, this is a way to go extract my discontent. Mm-hmm. This is the way I can now go
with
and
a big
take this,
explosion and become notorious. I'll be notorious.
And it's not only maybe recognition, but it really is some of these cases, like in Columbine. These were kids who were isolated, who felt rejected, who felt, and this was a way that they acted out, which is unfortunate. And that's why I think overall, if we look at all of the things we talked about, parenting, culture violence, the use of guns, access to guns, mental health, how is it, do we have earlier diagnoses, and are there more signs that we can take a look at? But ultimately right now we can take steps, and we should have a template, as I indicated, that every school in the country has to follow immediately, and then allow them then from there to tailor it to their own needs in each community. But for instance, to say there will be, we do this now, think about natural disasters. In places where there are hurricanes and earthquakes, they build buildings to a different code and standard. We need to do the same with our schools now.
Are you for teachers with guns?
I don't believe that. I mean, if an individual is a teacher who has the right to carry, then I don't think I don't know how you say that you don't have that right to carry, depending upon whatever state rules they live in. I don't believe we should be arming teachers, though. I think the answer to that is to arm a trained security officer. Now, when I say that, it doesn't have to be a active duty or full-time employee currently of the school district. It could be a retired law enforcement. It could be retired military, just that you have to have the proper training in order to be able to engage if necessary. And that becomes a debate that you have within the school system. Do you need a resource officer so you can interact? Could they play a positive role and act as a good force with that interaction with students? Sure. But on the other hand, I think now it's more important to have a security individual there that has the ability to stop a problem if they see something happening.
To take him out. And a lot of it is convenience, because everything I'm hearing about this case in Texas is they had 2 armed resource officers in that building. So you could have a teacher down a certain wing, and he has a gun.
But think about this. Kid was coming in a trench coat when it was like 70, 80 degrees. Yeah. At some point, you begin to wonder, all right, you got some idiosyncrasies here, but what's going on?
How do we not see this?
Coat?
Yeah.
So this isn't necessarily pertaining to this case, but in some of the discussions we talked about one entry, and you know, I think I agree with all of that. And in fact, Andrew and I both went to Notre Dame, where it was one entry if you came in after the bell. If you weren't there, your mom called. They wanted to know why you were late or why you weren't on the campus at the time.
You rang the bell and got buzzed in. They had a camera to see who it was.
Exactly. Now, I think across the board that would work for any school. I just wonder, and this is unique to what you and I experienced, is allowing students to leave for lunch a thing of the past, because that creates a secondary problem where you have, right, for 4th period and 5th period and 6th period, you have a slew of children coming and going, and does that create security problems?
It probably does, and that goes to the point of when we develop these policies and we look to implement, we need to talk to stakeholders. We need to talk to the administrators in those buildings, to the faculty, and including the students. What do you think can and should be done in order to make this facility, this school, safer? So it can't be just politicians or experts making these decisions. You need to talk to the people that are there. And I think if we can do that now and then develop, as I indicated, a general plan and template, Look, society's changed. It's disappointing.
Yeah.
It's abhorrent, in my opinion. But now you can't go look at with terror in our country. We live in a different world right now. We never had to worry about walking through Times Square or the nation's capital, and now
worry about somebody in a big box truck mowing people down,
or a little girl's teenage
IBX, hold
concert.
on 1 second for me.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, I have you ever gone to a school? And you don't have kids, but I can tell you where the door's locked, you knock, and somebody comes over and they unlock the door for you and you walk in. We've all been in that position. That is something that's going to have to become a thing of the past because it exists today.
And all you need to do is look at how we had to change air travel. And we had to get used to it, and we're going to have to do the same thing here. And it's a reflection of the times,
an awful
unfortunately.
thing to even think about. Tim on the radio, you're on with Senator Joe Griffo. Hi, Tim.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
Hey, listen, I've got a solution for the part of the problem. They need to stop giving these kids homework so they can leave their books in school, and no more backpacks.
Well, I got to tell you, backpacks. You wonder what are you bringing in that backpack?
Well, they're obviously bringing the ammunition in.
Yeah.
Or do the homework. I mean, I know a lot of kids can't afford computers, but there's libraries if you do digital homework so that you don't have that problem.
I think a metal detector would probably solve that problem, but you're going to see that as an option.
Well, you see that in some of the urban centers right now that when they're going to schools, they're going through metal detectors, and they're also checking bags and things of that nature. Again, it's like an airport, or like if you go into if you walk into St. Patrick's Cathedral in New York City, they're looking at your bag. Or if you're going into stadiums now for sporting events, look,
they're going through your bag.
It's a reflection.
Or you go to answer a traffic ticket, and you go through a metal detector.
Yeah, and part of the thing that I was talking about lunch is that idea where, like, even at a sporting game or you go to a Comets game, once you're in, you're in. Right? And that's what I'm saying with school is, do we have to adopt this thing where, and that doesn't apply to this case, but
I think that's an option. And even parental access is going to end up getting limited to make sure these schools are secure. Jack in Rome with a quick question or comment. Jack.
Good morning, guys. Good morning,
Good
Joe.
morning. Good morning.
First, I'll tell you that I had my picture taken at RFA when RFA first started their security, and I was at the window when they took the picture of me, and they wouldn't even let me in the school. Second thing is, we're talking about movies, so let's look at a good one. Morgan Freeman in Lean on Me.
Mm-hmm. Right. Remember that? Remember how he went in there and just
school.
Yep. Can't do it today though. So many rules and regulations.
I know.
But that was an inspiring movie where that guy went in and that's a true story. By the way,
he had trouble in his school.
Yeah.
He got rid of it by locking the school.
Yep. All right, Jack, thanks. You want to comment on this?
I think the key here is that this is a great conversation, and I'm glad to hear people engaged and concerned, and very good points being raised. But the most important thing is we need to do something. Yeah. We've got to stop talking about it and start doing something.
I want to switch gears if I could, and $150 billion is out there that we can get a piece of. And the Syracuse Post-Standard today, their headline from the editorial board, New York, get your act together on sports betting. You're going to let $150 billion slip away. Will something be done this session?
Yes, and I believe it will. The problem is you've got to do this right. I now that sportsbook is allowed under the U.S. Supreme Court decision, unless there's any other challenges or changes in laws, because I heard Congress may consider some legislation. So based on what currently exists, based on SCOTUS's decision, I think New York will participate.
Yeah.
The problem is, how do you do this? That's the challenge right now. We've already been sold a bill of goods by the governor about gaming, and it's been a disaster. You've got proliferation and saturation, so you go right along the I-90 corridor. Stupid decisions by the Gaming Commission. As you know, I've criticized this a number of times. And the problem is what was told to the people of the state of New York by the governor, that this will be an economic benefit to your community and this state. It will be greater investments in education, is becoming just the opposite. Now, many of these casinos are looking for bailouts.
Although the Turning Stone is benefiting Oneida County right now.
Absolutely.
No doubt
about it. The Oneida Nation and the sovereign nations.
I get the diluting of the problem. However, this sports betting is going on anyway.
but
we're doing it anyway. Don't you feel we ought to regulate it and get a piece of the pie?
The Oneidas and I think many of the other sovereign nations are doing good work. Yeah. And that's one of the points.
But the Oneidas are going to do sports betting soon.
Whatever is allowed in the state of New York now as a result of the Supreme Court ruling, and I have no objection to sports book and sports betting. I think we do need to listen to the industries like Major League Baseball and the professional sports organizations to hear what their concerns may be. Let's get it right if we're going to do that. Let's look at how we can access this, make sure there's a fair and level playing field. For instance, not only the casinos, but potentially even the racinos. The other thing is, will we be able to allow mobile devices to be used? Potentially, but it's got to be done again with safeguards and checks.
I think you got to do that because that is where the money's going.
And that's the point. So if we're going to do this, do it right. What I'm saying is the governor undertook a policy for gaming in New York that was wrong. And we went into fast.
Well, he's diluted the market. There's no doubt about it.
Exactly. But so where's the true benefit? So when everybody's saying you got 150 that's escaping, I'm not sure about any of the numbers anymore. So I wouldn't rest my laurels and rest comfortably on the fact that this is a cure-all. It's going to bring all these billions of dollars, because I'm seeing just the opposite right now with many of these components of gaming where they're all asking for help. And we saw that even here with Vernon, and I think it was a legitimate request.
I think these are
the position they were put in.
Two different things. You're talking about the diluting of a market, and it's no doubt that's what the governor did. On the other hand, sports betting is being done. Let's get in on the
I just
action.
hope that it's not like Uber or MMA, where New York's the last state to allow it.
Well, that won't happen, Andrew. But what will happen is if you don't do it right, you're not going to get the benefit that everybody believes.
Can you do it right before the end of this session?
I hope so. Okay. You should be able to do it right, at least the beginnings of that. But again, I wouldn't rely on this as a cure-all to a lot of the problems and challenges that are facing the state economically.
Joe, no one here believes, lottery, it's going to save education. Every year, our school districts still fight for money. It hasn't solved the problem. The throughway is going to be free, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think somewhere along the line, the governor's going to get his hands in there and muddy this crap up.
Because you just brought that up, people have said to me since this gaming ruling, well, they said all the scratch-off money was going to go to education, all the gambling money. Does that happen or doesn't it?
It does, but it's a complicated formula. We can get you all. I've looked into this several times because that's a common question. Like, I thought this money was going to all be allocated for education, and why is there still all these needs and challenges that are confronting education? So generally, it is directed that way.
Well, because then money goes from lottery, but then the governor backs it out of the formula, and money is taken away.
There are a lot of
no one's any net. There's no net gain at the end of the day.
And the formulas need to be changed.
Diana, I want to get two calls in before we get done here with Senator Joe Griffo. Diana in Utica, you're on the radio.
Hello. Actually, I'm from Ilion.
Hi,
but I was thinking about the school issue. And I think maybe we're looking at this from the wrong way. Like, if we abolished our gun control laws and we taught our children, all of our children nationally, to respect guns at the age of 14, I think we could stop all school shootings.
Well, you might be right, Diana. Quickly moving to Joe in Rome. I've got just a second here, Joe. Almost out of time. Hi, Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're on with Senator Griffo.
Hi, Joe.
Joe Uvani, how are you, Joe?
How are you doing, Joe?
Good. We're all interested in saving lives, and I've been thinking about talking to you about this. We should have in New York State and all across the country mandatory inspection of driver's license every 5 years, because if you look at the average driver is good for his first test, and then he gets downhill and gets into bad habits, like never putting their lights on, never signaling, doing a whole mess of things. We would save many, many lives if people were to take a test every 5 years.
Joe, I gotta tell you, I'm in the process. My daughter is about ready to start driving, and I'm not confident that I'll be able to teach her properly. To think about it. I was 16 years old when I took my test. Yeah. I have forgotten more than I ever knew, probably, and. You're right. If we had a refresher.
Bill's got the tickets to prove it.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. What do you think about a bit of a refresher?
I think that what you need right now is to really focus on a major problem is distracted driving before we can even tackle whether or not you have new types of assessments on your license, the distracted driving really concerns me. I think that's going to be one of the biggest problems that are going to confront society over the next several years. Innocent lives are going to be lost, unfortunately, because of all the new technology, which could be beneficial, but in the end is going to be harmful.
Good point, Joe. We appreciate it. Thanks.